Welcome into One of One Sports. We just had a crazy week of college football, and I this was my first week that I actually made an upset alert video. And I said in the video the reason I'm making it is because it feels like they're saying it's going to be a boring week. There's only one top 25 matchup. It feels like something crazy is going to happen. So I was kind of and so I was kind of expecting someone's going to go down, like one of the big teams, but never did I see that many upsets coming. It was just crazy. So usually you like to start with right wrong, but for today, gotta start with biggest surprises. And so coming in third place for my biggest surprise is gonna be the Minnesota Golden Gophers, who defeated USC 24-17. And I was not like crazy surprised by this one specifically. If you saw my upset alert video, I had it at a 6 out of 10. So I was kind of nervous for USC just because USC hadn't really been putting together full halves of good football. They'd been getting off to slow starts, then playing better in the second half. And then Minnesota, we saw almost upset Michigan last week. So I was on alert for this game. But then it's really the way that they were able to win, because I really liked PJ Fleck making that call to go for the fourth down, because it felt like USC would be able to get a field goal if they just went up 3, and then in overtime, who knows who wins that. So I really like the aggressive play call by PJ Fleck, and it was surprising to me that he actually made that call. I don't really see teams, if you have a chance to take the lead, I usually see them just take the lead. But then the defense was really good, picking off Miller Moss twice against a USC team that we know with Lincoln Riley is usually pretty explosive. So 2 interceptions and you force a fumble. So they're playing really well on defense. And then USC, what was surprising, it was just the offense not really clicking, and the defense actually still being solid. Like, you hold a team to 24. If you're USC, you should expect to win, and you go into the fourth quarter up 17-10, and you lose it 14-0. So that was surprising as well, especially when you consider that USC had been playing better in the second half and had been a good fourth quarter team. So that was it was pretty surprising, but nowhere near the most surprising thing that happened this weekend. So getting to number 2, and that is Arkansas. And again, this one I had on a 4. I'm not stunned that Arkansas was able to win. I talked about in the video that Arkansas had been a decent team. They just found some ways to lose some games. Like, they were competing with A&M. They should have beat Oklahoma State, but they definitely controlled the Oklahoma State game most of the game, and then find ways to lose it. So if Arkansas plays like a fully good game for them, they can beat Tennessee. But what was surprising was how good Arkansas's defense was, holding Tennessee to just 14 points. This dynamic Josh Heupel offense, maybe the worst offensive performance Tennessee's ever had for him. Nico Iamaleava did not look good at all. The receivers did not look great. The O-line was getting pretty much handled by Arkansas, especially Landon Jackson. So just how much they were able to limit this Tennessee offense was really surprising. And then it felt like, because Arkansas dominated the first half, but was only up 3-0 because they missed a field goal and turned the ball over on downs twice. I believe both in both deep inside Tennessee territory actually. But so turnovers on downs and then missed field goals, so you're only up 3-0 even though you dominated Tennessee. And then the first 2 drives of the second half, Tennessee goes on 7-play, 75-yard and 60-yard drives, so they're up 14-3. And it looks like, Josh Heupel figured it out at halftime. This is the Tennessee we're expecting. Arkansas is in trouble. But then Arkansas actually fights back. The defense gets back in a rhythm. And then I still think, Tennessee's going to get lucky because Taylor Green got knocked out of the game. And so did Jaquin Jackson. So you're down to your backup running back and your backup quarterback. I was like, Tennessee's going to survive. But no, he actually leads a game-winning touchdown drive, the backup quarterback with the backup running back. A game-winning touchdown drive to take the lead 19-14. That was very surprising. And then Nico at the end there, I don't know how you make that mistake. You can't use all the time and then run out of bounds. Even if there was time, he's going to be short of the first down on a 4th. And either way, you got to throw it up to the end zone. Give your guys a chance. So that had to be frustrating to watch. He's a young quarterback, but that's a mistake you just can't really make. And Tennessee, I felt like they were getting a little overhyped because the competition they played wasn't as good as we thought it was before. Like, Oklahoma and NC State weren't as good. and I thought their defense could still be exposed. But that's not even what happened. It wasn't like Arkansas was killing their defense. It was their offense that got shut down. And Oklahoma did a good job against the Tennessee offense for the most part, but it still felt like Tennessee was dominating them. But so the two road games they played, Arkansas and Oklahoma, the offense did not look nearly as good. So it'll be interesting. I want to see that Florida game. If they look great again at home, we can maybe start looking at, is this like a road thing? Does like Nico, or is there some struggle on the road for Tennessee that's causing these problems? Or if they struggle a little bit with Florida, we can see if it's a competition thing. Then again, Florida might not be that good, so we might not be able to tell. But I kind of want to analyze that, figure it out before they take on Alabama. Speaking of Alabama, by far the biggest surprise this weekend, Vanderbilt beat Alabama 40-35. Diego Pavia channeled his inner Johnny Manziel. They talked about the whole broadcast, and this was, I think, the most shocking upset I've ever seen in college football. No, there's no caveats. I've never been more surprised than Vanderbilt beating Alabama. Like, I was making jokes about this game, say, should go to the Vanderbilt game, see the greatest upset ever, because I was so certain Alabama would win this game. They just beat in Georgia. Like, after this game ended, I was just completely stunned, because I felt the whole time, it was like, Vandy looks like they're gonna win. And then Jalen Milroe had the ball down 5. Alabama had the ball down 5. And Jalen Milroe gets sacked. Vandy gets the recovery. And I'm like, this is over. Like, Vanderbilt's going to beat Alabama. I was just left completely stunned. I mean, if someone had told me on Friday that in your lifetime you'll never see Alabama lose to Vanderbilt, I'd be like, yeah, thanks, Captain Obvious. Like, I know Vanderbilt's never going to beat Alabama. It's just completely unbelievable. You told me Vanderbilt's going to put up 40 on Alabama? I thought you were out of your mind. Vanderbilt had less fans at the game. Alabama just beat Georgia. We're talking about how great Ryan Williams was, and he's still great. Don't get me wrong. Jalen Milroe's become the Heisman favorite. Also still great. But you're going to tell me they're going to lose to Alabama? You're telling me that Eli Stiller's the converted tight end's going 6 catches for 113 yards? That Jalen Milroe's going to throw a pick 6 to start the game? He's going to take a strip sack as well? It's just it's just unbelievable. Great win for the Vanderbilt program. My dad went to Vanderbilt, so he was very happy. It's cool to see Vanderbilt beat Alabama, but it was unbelievable. I felt like I was in some alternate reality. That was how shocked I was by this game. Like I said, Northern Illinois, huge upset. These other upsets this weekend, huge upsets. Even upsets in the past have been huge. Nothing left me more shocked than Vanderbilt beating Alabama. And that's all I can really say for this one. So now that we're done with the biggest surprises, now we can get into right wrong. And the first thing I was wrong about was the Michigan Wolverines. I thought because of the Rutgers game against Washington, how Rutgers was able to run the ball with Managa. I'm saying his name wrong, I'm sorry. But I thought Michigan would be able to do the same thing with Mullings and a little bit of Donovan Edwards and then even Orji on the ground. And they really struggled. And then they came back and they actually had to switch out Orji for Jack Tuttle. And I thought they were going to win this game, especially when Ernest Hausman, he dropped back into coverage, picked off Will Rogers. And I thought, Michigan's can run the ball now because they get a first down after that with Mullings and Edwards running the ball. And I think they're set up you're controlling the line of scrimmage now. It's finally the game plan's working. And then they throw an incompletion. And then they drop back again. Tuttle gets, frantic, tries to run, fumbles the ball. And then Washington's set up to win the game because this Michigan team's not built to play from behind. But it's just it's frustrating to see as someone who does root for Michigan. Because I kind of liked, there was obviously limitations, huge limitations for Alex Orji in the passing game. But I kind of liked it because the offensive coordinator was forced to just run the ball. So even though Jack Tuttle's clearly a better passer than Alex Orji, he's still not good, and I would still prefer just to hand the ball off, at least just use clock, because your best players on offense, Colston Loveland, yes, but it's hard. The quarterbacks just aren't good, and after that, they're on your O line, and they're with Mullings and Edwards when he's playing well. He's been, hasn't been great this year, but we've seen Edwards in the past have huge games, Washington game, the Ohio State games. We know what he can do if he starts breaking them. And I want to I want a commitment to the run. There should never, if Michigan has 1st and 10, there should never be back-to-back play calls of pass. It just shouldn't happen. This team's not built for that. So making those play calls after the interception, I mean, that's just bad play calling, in my opinion. That's just asking to lose the game when you're putting the game in the hands of your third-string quarterback at this point, coming off injury. Just first week he's ready, and he's never been very good. It was frustrating to see. Good win on Washington's part. Will Rogers, pretty good. It's good to see him back in kind of how he looked back at Mississippi State. And Washington is good for their fans because they would have been very frustrated with Grady Gross missing more kicks, with another game where they way outgained their opponent, like the Rutgers game. I think Washington State as well. And then you lose because you can't score in the red zone. Like Washington State got stopped on the goal line. The Rutgers game, they kept missing field goals that they had to settle for. So good on them for finally getting a win like this in this kind of game. But yeah, I was wrong about Michigan. Moving on to something I was right about. You weren't right about a lot in a week when I'm going for the Virginia game. But Virginia beats Boston College 24-14. And this is more of a preseason thing. You go back, you watch my ACC predictions. I talk about Virginia being underrated. I think I picked them to go 6-6 actually, which may be a little high. Like I don't know if I agree with that, but they're 4-1, and I think they were picked preseason to only win 4.5 games. They were picked to lose. I think most people would say they would lose Boston College, maybe Wake Forest. I picked them to win both in the preseason. So just something I was right about. The Virginia Cavaliers actually being not the worst team in the ACC, and we'll see how good they can do. See if they can get to my 6-6 prediction I had for them. And then one more thing I was wrong about, and this one hurts. It's the Arizona Wildcats. Oh man, they really struggled. I thought, first off, I was wrong about the whole game entirely because I predicted it to be 37-34, like a shootout kind of game, and it was actually like a defensive battle between Texas Tech and Arizona, which I definitely did not see coming. Texas Tech's defense has been really bad every time I watched it, and U of A's defense has been inconsistent, and Texas Tech has pretty good offense and a good running back. So I thought it was going to be a shootout. It was not. So I was wrong on that front. And then Arizona really struggles in the first half. I think it's 18-3 at halftime. But then they come back. They take the lead 19-18. And then really their best players let them down. Tyler Loop, the kicker, he's been maybe the best kicker in the country this year so far. I mean, his leg strength's ridiculous. And he misses, for him, an easy one to go up 4. So then when Texas Tech goes down the field, they hit the field goal. They're up. And then Tedera McMillan, who I call the best receiver in the country. Again, he was great again today, but he does his signature move where he catches it, stops, turns around, and somebody knocks the ball out, so it's a fumble. Texas Tech then scores a touchdown, and Arizona's not able to win after that. So you come all the way back to take the lead 19-18, and then you kind of fall apart there. And to be fair, if Texas Tech had lost, they would have been saying the same thing because their star running back, Taj Brooks, one of the best in the country, fumbled twice, which led to Arizona points, and he never fumbles. So either team that lost would have been like, wow, our best players who we rely on fully, McMillan, Loop, Brooks, whoever it was, made some crucial mistakes that would have cost us the game. But I really thought Arizona was going to win this game. I was pretty confident in it. So I was definitely wrong about Arizona. As a fan of Arizona, I'm hoping they can bounce back, beat BYU next week, but that's going to be a tough game. BYU's at home, and BYU's been rolling this year, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, last thing is I was wrong about Arizona. But now let's move on to who were the most impressive teams of the weekend. There's a lot of good options, and it'll be different from the most surprising teams. I think my first team here coming in third place might surprise you, and that is the Miami Hurricanes. They defeat Cal 39-38, and some of you are probably saying that's not impressive at all. You're supposed to beat Cal. And if you watch the game, Miami was down 35-10 in the second half, and it looked like there was no chance they were going to win this game. But that's what made it so much more impressive to me. I mean, when you look around at the landscape of college football this week, and you see Alabama never able to come back against Vanderbilt, Tennessee never able to get anything going against Arkansas, Who else goes there? Oh, Missouri getting rolled by A&M, Michigan losing to Washington, USC losing to Minnesota. When you see all these upsets and you see Miami down 39 to not 39, 35 to 10 with let's see, there was they finally cut it 35-18 with 3 minutes left in the third quarter. So you're down the whole time. Cam Ward struggling a little bit. He throws that pick six. That was a brutal pick six. The defense is getting carved up. They'd allowed a 57-yard touchdown, a 66-yard touchdown. So nothing's going well. And it's been a night full of upsets. No one would have been shocked to see another. But like, oh, that's just how this weekend was. But no, you fight back. Cam Ward ends up throwing for 437 yards. Fourth down conversion after fourth down conversion. Clutch play after clutch play. And I'm sure there was controversial no call on the targeting. I don't know how to feel about it. I thought it could have been targeting, but I also feel like if that's a running back, they never call it targeting. So I didn't really know what to make of it. Definitely could, if it would have been called targeting, I would have seen why completely. But the end of the day, Cal, you have a 35-10 lead. You can't blame the game on missed targeting call. You had a 25-point lead, and you couldn't stop Cam Ward. He scored touchdown, 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 and he gets the 2-point conversion. He's picking up 3rd and 20 with the game on the line. I mean, when it came down to it, Miami had Cam Ward and Cal did it. That's really what it was. Miami had Xavier Restrepo, and they did it. It was just big-time players made big-time plays in big-time games, and that's what was so impressive to me. In a week where so many big teams failed to have that, this is the second straight week where Miami could have definitely been upset, and that's, it's kind of concerning because back-to-back weeks, you've been at risk of going down. But what's more impressive is that they find a way to win because it seems like Cam Ward's, he's just having a great year, and they just have playmakers that find a way to win games. And in this kind of season, it's a survive and advance kind of season. So Miami, you get to that bye week undefeated 6-0. That's impressive to me. Second most impressive team of the weekend is the Ole Miss Rebels, who defeated South Carolina 27-3. And this was really impressive to me because I predicted this game. I picked Ole Miss to win. One of the rare games I got right in my game breakdowns. We're 22-3 on the season in game breakdowns, killing it. And I go 1 for 4 this week. I think I missed Arizona, I missed Michigan, I missed Missouri, and I missed Louisville. Brutal week. So we're gonna drop to, what would that be? 23-7. Still not terrible, but just a brutal week. Anyways, I digress. Back to Ole Miss. So I predicted 27-20. So the offense actually did, pretty well, I guess technically exactly what I thought it would. But the defense, shutting down South Carolina was pretty impressive. And I was impressed with how they responded. I thought after losing the Kentucky game, there was a chance you come out slow because you're disappointed. But no, they came out ready to play. Still didn't run the ball as well as I liked them to. But the offense for the most part was pretty good. Like I said, defense was great. You held, South Carolina's leading rusher was the quarterback with 55. You limited the passing game as well. And this South Carolina team that I thought was pretty good. I thought, if not for a few controversial calls, they probably beat LSU. And they destroyed Kentucky, which would beat Ole Miss. They were at home, off a bye. I thought there was definitely a chance South Carolina would win. And I thought they would for sure be competitive. So being able to win a blowout game where South Carolina never could get anything going offensively was very impressive for me, and it shows the Kentucky game, at least I think, was kind of a fluke. But I think in this college football season, we're going to see a lot of kind of flukes just because no team is, or at least it doesn't look like we can trust any team to be consistently really good, and that's what you would expect. But this year more than usual, to see Alabama beat Georgia then lose to Vanderbilt, that's a pendulum swing you just don't really see in most years. But moving on to my most impressive team of the weekend, and that is the Texas A&M Aggies. I picked Missouri to win this game 31-21, and before one, I will say A&M was clearly better, but there were a few key plays, and I'll just point this out. In college football, I think early plays can make a huge difference, even when the end result doesn't look like it. So, just some I've seen this year. Arizona got blown out by Kansas State 31-7. Arizona scored on the first drive of the game 7-0. Then Kansas State went for 4th and 1 in their own territory the next drive. I think they got stopped. They refs marked a first down, and before they could review it, Kansas State ran the next play. Kansas State then scores. They run away with the game, right? If Arizona gets that stop and you're up 7-0 with the ball in Kansas State territory to start the game, maybe you go up 10-0, maybe 14-0. That's a huge difference. I saw it with, what was the other game? I saw it in Tennessee, NC State. Again, Tennessee was clearly better, probably would have won anyways. But NC State's deep in Tennessee territory, can tie it 10-10 going into halftime. Instead, throws a pick six, 17-3, and then the game blows open. USC, Michigan, it looked like USC maybe stopped on a fourth down. Next play, Mullings breaks the run for a touchdown. And I'm just saying, these plays that, in the end result, I mean, the Michigan one you can tell because it was a close game. But even in blowouts, like the NC State, the Arizona, the whole game could be changed if the ref makes a different decision on those plays. And that's kind of how I felt for the Luther Burden touchdown getting called back for lineman downfield. 10-7 with momentum, completely different than 10-0 having to punt. So I just want to mention that was a huge shift. But it didn't. Ultimately, there was a full game left to play, and A&M continued to dominate, just demoralized Missouri. They're up 24-0 at half, and they come out first play after the half, 75-yard run for a touchdown. Le'Veon Moss was awesome, and I talked about in my breakdown that skill position guys for A&M would have to step up, and they did. At running back, Le'Veon Moss was awesome, 12 for 138, and then the receivers also stepped up. Noah Thomas did it early, going 3 for 65, and then Terry Bussey had 3 for 76. So that it's not like world record numbers, but for A&M and how I've seen their skill positions play so far this year, it was big. It was big for those guys to step up. And then Brady Cook continued to struggle. The O-line struggled for Missouri, but those were things I could have seen coming. What was really impressive was just how A&M was able to move the ball against a Missouri defense that I thought was really good. Connor Wigman looked really good. Big decision to start him over Reed, but paid off, obviously. But yeah, A&M was able to dominate on the line of scrimmage, move the ball seemingly at will, and I was just really impressed because I didn't think they would even win. And this seemed like the game that A&M's lost in the past. So if you're an A&M fan, you got to be optimistic. Mike Elko's coming in here. I think you're already seeing the improvements. Huge win for them, and they were my most impressive win of the week. Some other games I wanted to cover quickly before my final takeaways. SMU over Louisville. Big game because I thought Louisville was going to win. And I talked about how the winner of this game puts themselves in position to be in a 3-team race with Clemson and Miami. Now, I guess some people think Pitt's in that race. I disagree. I think Pitt's the worst undefeated team in the country. And I thought it was going to be Louisville. After seeing Louisville play against Notre Dame, I thought Tyler Shuck was going to play really well, Ja'Cory Brooks, and I thought Louisville was going to get it done. And they played fine. It was a competitive game, but ultimately SMU was able to go on the road. Kevin Jennings was really, really good. And the running game, I thought Louisville was going to be able to limit them more, but Jennings, what he did on the ground was just really impressive. They did limit Brashard Smith a little bit, but I didn't think SMU going on the road, after seeing SMU early in the season lose to BYU, who it turns out is probably pretty good, and the struggles against Nevada, I kind of been written them off as like a real ACC contender. But winning this game, I mean, you're right back in it because you're still undefeated in SEC, and not in SEC play, in ACC play, and the schedule's fairly manageable, right? I mean, you don't want to look ahead, but your next games, they are on the road, but you get a bye week, and then at Stanford and at Duke, both winnable. Pitt and Boston College at home, winnable. At Virginia and Cal, all very winnable games. Now, SMU isn't good enough to the point where they can just walk through that. But there's definitely a world where SMU can win out. I mean, it's possible. And then you're in the ACC title. So there's that. So I thought it was worth mentioning. Then Nebraska beats Rutgers, ending Rutgers' undefeated campaign. This was just a defensive slugfest. Rutgers was a little bit... Nebraska shutting down the run game, forcing Rutgers to try to move the ball through the air, was really what allowed them to win. But Nebraska wasn't good either. The O-line, the Rutgers got pressure on Raiola. It was just ugly game, but if you're Nebraska, you'll take wins any way you can get them, right? After the way you lost against Illinois, you just want to get back on track because you still think this can be a really special season for the program, and it still can be, and you improve to, I believe, 5-1. Then Syracuse UNLV, another great Friday night game. UNLV special teams, I thought was going to get them the win with the block punt, and then the one that wasn't blocked, but it forced the Syracuse punter to try to run and gets tackled. So I thought UNLV was actually going to win because of Ricky White's amazing special teams performance. But they allowed Syracuse to tie the game, to send it to overtime. Then in overtime, couldn't get the job done. But it was a great game, and unfortunate. I thought UNLV could have put themselves in position to be, the leading candidate to get that 12th spot in the playoff. But you lose to Syracuse. You could still get there. It's not a conference game, but it would have been a huge win. You're ranked in the top 25, beat a Power 4 opponent. Couldn't quite get it done. And then Clemson over Florida State. Dabo Swinney becomes the ACC's all-time leader. But Florida State, I thought, showed some fight. Brock Glenn did some things that were, pretty decent. Obviously, it never felt like Clemson could lose this game. But Clemson, it was kind of disappointing because you racked up like over 500 yards of offense, but you had to settle for field goals a lot. So you'd like to see improvement there because they had been rolling offensively, and I still think they're really good. But since that Georgia game, they haven't played anyone, anyone very good. They played Stanford, NC State, Florida State, App State, and this was their worst game so far, and it was on the road. So kind of concerning the struggles on the road, especially given how much Klubnik struggled on the road in the past. So I'd like to see them clean that up against Wake Forest next week. But now to the final takeaways of the week. What were my biggest takeaways? We got 3 of them. And the first one is that the top of the Big Ten has separated. I think Ohio State this week, seeing what they did against Iowa, even a game where they didn't play great, but we're still able, that defense, given Iowa's offense not very good, but Ohio State, the defense is going to keep them in games until the offense can come along. And even if Will Howard's not the best quarterback, he has so many weapons like Ibuka, Judkins, Henderson, Jeremiah Smith, that this team is really, really good. Then Oregon, I think we're seeing them round into form. The defense was great against Michigan State, and they've been playing really well. Now Dylan Gabriel got to clean up those red zone turnovers. He threw a pick 6 in the end zone against UCLA last week, and he threw 2 red zone interceptions, 1 in the end zone again, 1 near the end zone against Michigan State. So got to clean that up. But they're definitely explosive, like Ohio State, a ton of weapons. The running back, James is very good, Evan Stewart, Tez Johnson, Ferguson's really good at tight end. And the defense for the last 3 weeks been really good. Held Oregon State to 14, UCLA to 13, one of which is a pick 6, Michigan State to 10. So the defense is there, and the O-line's playing a whole lot better. We'll see how well it holds up against that Ohio State D-line. Super excited for that game next week. But we see Oregon and Ohio State separate. We see Penn State still, hanging on. They look just like old Penn State, still offensive issues, but they're going to beat the teams they're better than. I assume they're probably going to lose to the teams they're, like Ohio State or an Oregon, but they're still in that top tier. And then maybe Indiana's there. We'll see, right? Haven't been challenged by a great team, but they've won all their games, so you gotta respect it. And then we see Michigan, USC, not in that tier, right? They both go down this week, clearly a step below. Rutgers as well. Nebraska's in that tier with them. Washington's in that tier. So we see how the Big Ten has separated. Who's going to be the top contenders that can maybe join Ohio State and Oregon and contending for those playoff spots. But my second takeaway is we don't really need a 12-team playoff, right? I don't know. Say we have a 14 playoff. Are there 4 teams you feel confident in would make the playoff at this point? Alabama goes down. Texas, sure. Ohio State or Oregon, sure. But then Tennessee goes down. Georgia's already gone down. Penn State, they're probably going down. Miami, we've seen struggle the past 2 weeks against inferior competition. Missouri goes down. Michigan goes down. USC goes down. Ole Miss has already lost to Kentucky. LSU lost to USC. Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. Clemson got crushed by Georgia. So it's going through that. That's the top 15 teams. It's getting really hard to make an AP top 10 or any top 10 ranking. Like, you run out of teams real quick that you're confident in, or quote unquote top 10 caliber teams, because everybody seems to have huge flaws or have had massive either losses or highly questionable performances. So this year, more so than ever, it doesn't filling out a playoff. It seems like we'd be fine with 4 teams. I'm not sure if we can even get 4 really good teams this year. So I've never been a proponent of a 12-team playoff because I'm of the belief that it kind of waters down the regular season. Especially at the end of the year, if we get a Michigan, we won't get it this year, but in the past, if we got, just for example, the undefeated Michigan versus undefeated Ohio State game, winners going to the Big Ten championship and the playoff, losers eliminated. I love that kind of game. It's just great to me. But to have it now where if that happens, both teams are going to get in the playoff, It's just disappointing for me to see that. The game will still mean a ton because it's Michigan, it's Ohio State, but it's just, it's a little frustrating to see that in my opinion. But specifically this year, I really don't think we need a 12-team playoff. And number one is anybody, and I mean anybody, can beat anybody. If Vanderbilt beat Alabama, there's nothing that's off the table for me. Any upset anyone predicts, I'll have to be like, it could happen. Unless it's like some obscure FCS school, but pretty much anybody can beat anybody. I mean, like I said, I've never been more shocked than Vanderbilt beating Alabama. If you can go from beating Georgia to losing to Vanderbilt, anything's possible in this sport. Next week, South Carolina could beat Alabama on the road. Who else playing? Florida can beat Tennessee. I don't know. Auburn could beat Alabama. Any upset could happen. There's just endless possibilities now. Nobody's safe. All these teams are really, really flawed, it would seem. Pretty much everyone struggled. We'll see. Ohio State hasn't really struggled yet this year, but now they have Oregon. Texas hasn't really struggled, but they'll have Oklahoma who can maybe test them. So we'll see if those teams, how vulnerable they look, or they may be going to separate as the best teams in the country. We'll see. But those are my final takeaways. It was a great week of college football. I'll see you guys all next week when we do this all again. I'll also, just an announcement, if anyone's interested in NBA content, that will be coming out on the channel shortly. I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe.